YouTube. Today I want to talk about one of my all-time favorite combat shotguns, that being the Mossberg 500M MILSGUN. This thing goes all the way back to 1976 in its development and its final outcome of the product. It's a rather interesting history. I'd like to share it with you. I'd like to discuss how it came to be way back in 76 with the first military standard, which was 3443D, calling for a specification of a shotgun able to withstand 3,000 rounds with a 0.1% malfunction. That's 3 malfunctions in the 3,000 rounds. Mossberg met that standard, and from there it's been up just a positive go for them in overall quality and production of these guns. They're still in use today. The Navy was original buyer and procurer. Coast Guard followed soon after, and from there it took off. Today, all branches of the military service use this gun, and I want to discuss some of the ways that it came to be and why it's such an adaptable, practical, and dependable combat shotgun. So let's move over to the workbench and we'll have a little discussion. Mossberg 500 MILSGUN story goes all the way back to 1976. This was a period of time directly after the Vietnam conflict had ended. The military services realized that their shotgun inventory was beginning to deplete. What they had on hand and available was starting to wear out, and they knew they were going to need to start replacing those guns in the very near future. So they put out a military standard and a request for solicitations for the development of a riot and combat type shotgun that would meet some pretty stiff parameters that they set forth. Initially this was put down under standards of S3443D, and it called for a shotgun that was capable of firing 3,000 rounds with less than 0.1% malfunction rate. It listed some pretty basic stuff: interchangeable components, ability, some specifications such as should be able to have a 6-shot and an 8-shot capability. Barrel lengths were specified. At the time, it was 20-inch barrels were requested for both the 6-shot and the 8-shot variations. And this is kind of important. The reason that the military services had asked for 20-inch barrels is because mainly the guns, while they were used in combat, were also used in riot-type applications. And it's important to note that a 20-inch barrel fitted to a 6-shot shotgun has a long enough barrel to fit tear gas canisters onto the end of the barrel and be fired. Your 18.5 and shorter barrels don't have enough length between the barrel and the end of the magazine to be able to fit a tear gas grenade canister and launch it properly. So they specified the guns with 20-inch barrels. Mossberg complied, and Mossberg met the parameters set forth in that first specification. In 1979, initial military orders were procured, and they originally were made by the Navy, and they asked for 2 different variations of the gun. Now, at the time, it was not known as a 500 MILSGUN. They were put down as a M500, ATP SP8, and ATP SP6, or 6SP, 8SP. And then if they had a bayonet lug included, there was a B added onto the back of that. The 6-shot guns were not normally fitted with bayonet lug. The 8-shot guns were. The 8-shot guns tended to go to the Marine Corps, who were Marine Corps, and I should say the Navy boat interdiction services. These are the guys that actually get onto the boats and search them. Coast Guard, same thing. At the time, they were using Remington 870 shotguns that were procured during the Vietnam War. And they proved to be pretty reliable. Matter of fact, there's quite a few of them still in service in the Navy services. But they were wanting. There were some problems with reliability and other issues with the guns. So Mossberg stepped in and they began filling contracts initially to the Navy. And long about 1983, they made some changes or some requests. Originally, the guns were coming in the standard Mossberg. They're basically Mossberg Riot Model 500 shotguns. They did have the option of mounting a barrel heat shield. They came with birchwood instead of the synthetic stocking. And sling swivels were standard. These are some of the requirements of the specifications set forth in the military. Riot guns don't generally have sling swivels or heat shields on them. And long about 1983, the Navy started noticing some little issues with the Mossberg guns that they addressed. And these issues were put into another standard, which was S3443E and S3443F. And what those specifications were, one of the things that they didn't like was the sealed magazine tube that uses a retained nut on the end of the standard 500 to secure it to the magazine tube. They didn't like that because it wasn't too easy to get the magazines cleaned out. Magazine tubes, and if they rusted or got foreign material in them, you had to literally take these off, which involves heating them, applying quite a bit of force to get the tubes off. Another issue was Mossberg started shipping the guns with aluminum followers, and then at some point they switched to plastic. They did the same thing with the safety buttons on the top. The military requested that they switch those parts to metal. They requested that the trigger housings were made out of metal. They had to withstand a static force of 220 foot-pounds without bending, distorting, or breaking, which could render the gun inoperative. These were all done. And then they also made a request for a heavier than standard barrel. One of the things they found out was when the guns were being moved through ships, sometimes, especially when the ship clearing exercises, sometimes the guns would get caught up in heavy steel doors, would close on the guns and distort the barrels, bend them, dent them, and they wanted a heavier barrel. And Mossberg accommodated this request as well. And what formulated, or what came out of that, was what we see today as the current Mossberg 500 MILSGUN. I don't know if you can see that. I whited it out. But these are marked, hopefully you can see that, 500 mils on them. And these are the current standard that the military is using. Now there's, again, several different variations of the gun. They have brought them in, the Army's taken them in 18.5-inch barrel lengths. At some point, the Navy had requested 17-inch barrels on the Model 500s. Those were accommodated. I'm not sure if that was for again, ship interdiction, making it easier to move through tight confines in a ship or whatnot, but there were some made in 17-inch barrels of the 500. Or what we would call the ATP 6 SP. And then they standardized on 18.5 and 20-inch barrels on the current 500 MILSGUN. And this gun also has come in a couple different variations. There is the 6-shot variation. There is also the 20-inch barreled 8-shot variation. As time's gone on, they began to modify them. The Marine Corps made a request for ghost ring sights to be mounted on the guns. And bayonet lugs became standard. They really love their bayonets in the Marine Corps. So those were added. Primarily, those guns go to the Marine Corps the Army, Standard Navy, the Coast Guard, Air Force, they tend to use either the 18.5-inch or a 20-inch standard riot configuration. I happen to like the 6-shot variation over the 8-shot simply because you can modify the gun. An 8-shot variation with that long tube on it, you're limited to using that barrel on it. Whereas with the 6-shot variation, you can put either the 18.5 or 20-inch barrel on it. You can put the 20-inch barrel on it. There's a number of accessory end caps on here that can increase your magazine capacity. This one here happens to be a Vickers, I believe. It's a 1-shot extension. And you can get these up to 3-shot. So you can increase the total number to 8 rounds in the 20-inch barrel guns, 9 total with 1 in the chamber if you need to. That makes it a little bit more versatile a gun than just buying the 8-shot variation. Another thing that's notable of these guns, these were and are the predecessors of what's currently known now as the Model 590 and 590A1 series shotguns. They incorporated all the features that were requested on these guns into producing those guns, and they're available for the civilian market. Every bit as equal as the military guns. On the 590A1s, you'll basically get a mil-spec gun, that being a metal trigger assembly, metal safety, metal follower, and internals. This is your standard setup here. Like I said, I'll switch this over to a 1-shot extension. That gives me a total of 7 shots in this gun. And these just continue to keep going with the military. They've made, there's a number of new variations coming out. They've been used and modified into breaching weapons, combat shotgun applications, and of course riot and police type applications. So this has been a very versatile gun for the military. They've been extremely pleased with the gun, as you know, we've had nearly 30 years of purchasing going on. They haven't seen that really since World War I, when they started with the 1897 and the Winchester Model 12, where they bought those on and off all the way up through World War II. And the rest of the shotguns that they bought over the years have been small lots and generally have not been really good quality guns for the purpose of combat. Fine sporting guns, but they didn't really shine as far as combat guns. The Mossberg has shown itself to be a premier combat shotgun, and I think if you're looking for a combat shotgun or a home defense gun, this is probably one of the best ones that you can go with. So, if you can find Mossberg from the initial introduction of the Model 500 ATP6s all the way up to the 500 mils guns, occasionally releases these guns to the civilian market from contract overruns. And if you can find one, I would recommend you buy one. They can add a little bit of value, hold a little bit value more, but really it's just that, you know, it's not very common to find genuine mil-spec shotguns that are available on the market. When you do, they're expensive. The military guns will always have the U.S. designation marked out on them. So if you happen to see one out there, get a hold of it. Hopefully this will give you a little insight on the development of the gun, and hopefully these guns will continue to serve the United States military for many years to come. Thank you for watching.